Have others been able to get on?
Yep, you're all set to go.
Okay, thank you. Did Rod Mortensen call in because he was trying to get on his PC to do it?
Haven't seen him yet.
How about the mayor? She set?
Yep. You're all set to start the meeting. We're live.
Okay.
All set, Joe.
All right. Call the project building committee to order. Mr. Barron, would you please take the roll call?
He's muted.
Jeff?
Can you hear me?
Yes, now.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Members are asked to signify their presence when the name is called. Councilor Badraco,
Here.
Councilor Minor. Here. Mr. Claffey.
Here.
Mr. Mortensen.
He's
Mr.
still
Murtha.
trying to get on. Mr. Mortensen is having a problem getting on.
All right. Mr. Murtha.
Here.
Mr. Woods.
Here.
Mr. Harpy.
Here,
You have a quorum.
thank you. I'll entertain a motion for approval of prior meeting minutes.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes. Ed Murtha.
Is there a second?
Second, Chris Minor.
Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so approved. Public participation. Any member of the public wishing to speak, please state your name and address. Do we have anybody in the queue?
We do have two people that are on the attendee side, Barbara and Cheryl's Mac. If they are interested, they may use either *9 on their phone or utilize the raise hand feature in the participants window in the Zoom application.
Anyone wishing to participate in public participation?
Does not appear so at this time, but if you'd like, I'll unmute each one and we can confirm that with them.
Yes, please.
Let's see. Attempting to. You're now active, Barbara.
Hi, Barbara Squillico, 275 Field Street. I just wanted to say, and I don't know if anybody else is having a hard time getting in, but the agenda that went out for the password, there's a pound sign at the end of the password. And I tried putting it in 3 times and it wouldn't take. So I couldn't get into the meeting. So I just left it out the 4th time and lo and behold, I got in.
Well, we're glad you did get in.
So just in case anybody else is trying to get in.
I know your pain.
Do you have any other comments you'd like to make?
No, the only other thing that I wanted to find out, and maybe they can discuss it during the meeting, is how much of the project cost has been used for this first building and what's left for the second. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other member of the public wishing to speak? Please state your name and address.
We have somebody who's raised their hand.
Hello.
Would you state your name and address, please?
Yeah, it's Rod Mortensen.
Oh, Rod.
Got
in, okay.
Let me just tell you, aside from all this other COVID stuff going on, this stinks. This is the second time yeah. So just to let the committee know, I am here. I am going to listen to the meeting. Any questions or statements, Joe, I will get a hold of you either later tonight or tomorrow, because
I'm sorry for
I
the
just-
problems you had technically.
that's all right.
Working to resolve all those.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, just wanted to state that for the record. I'm here in spirit.
All right, thank you, Rod.
All right, bye.
Only took me 3 times, Rod.
Any other individual wishing to participate in public participation?
We have one individual left. I'll unmute that person. Just a moment.
Thank you, James. Yes, would you like to participate in public participation? Kindly state your name and address.
Doesn't appear they're accepting the.
Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the project update. Frank from Downs.
Thanks, Joe. Frank Tomczyk from Downs. Good afternoon, everybody. We'll start with the financial summary on the project, starting with the contract changes based on the last batch of approved changes. Revised changes to date is $676,316.96. That revises our total GMP value to $28,437,305.96. Between the pending and approximate changes that we've compiled to date, that total is $172,741.68, which would bring our anticipated final GMP value to $28,610,047.64. Within the CM contingency, we started with 831,809. Based on approved COPs, that total is $328,333.96. What's in pending right now in terms of our contingency totals $135,321.86. Keeping in mind that 75,000 of that 135,321 is a give back to the town of unspent contingency dollars. That would leave a remaining contingency value of CM contingency totaling $368,153.18, and that is included in the GMP value stated above. Within the owner's contingency, we have $868,405. That's what we started with based on a reconciliation we did with the town back in January. Based on approved changes, we have the $676,316.96 coming out of the owner's contingency. Between pending and approximate, we have some net deducts. Pending value is a negative $20,546.96. The approximate also nets a negative amount of $2,348.50. That would leave $214,983.50 within the owner's contingency. In terms of soft costs, I'm not tracking any. So the $1,706,810 is what we started with and what I'm showing as a revised soft cost. As far as CIP funds, we are presenting a change coming out of CIP funds. That change totals $195,637.14. That would leave a total project budget value totaling $30,531,841. Does anybody have any questions on that before we move on?
That 30 million plus budget also includes carrying the contingency and retainage,
Yes.
which is about a total of between the two, approximately $1,500,000, give or take.
Yeah, yep, roughly speaking, yes.
Okay, so to be clear to the public, that 30 million doesn't mean that we've overrun on building costs entirely. A good portion of that is allocated to support the contingency money that we have in the budget from the get-go, as well as retainage, which is hold back on the trade until we make certain that the work portion that they are completing for the project is done. And that's a standard operating procedure, but it has to be budgeted for. Go ahead, Frank. Thank you.
Okay, we'll run down the schedule update. A lot of progress has been made. I know it seemed like it took what seemed like an eternity to come out of the ground. Now that we're into the finishes aspect of the project, we're moving pretty quick. So I'll go through the work completed. I'm really just touching on some of the highlights of work completed since our last meeting, starting with the fence relocation along the east side of the project. We relocated the fence to the other side of the sidewalk, closer to the library. That enables us to do the prep work along Mazzicoli Way. The crown molding or cornice, we've installed those pieces around the perimeter of the gym. We were buttoning that work up the last time we met. Now that we have windows installed, we've done the air and leakage testing on the windows. The supply and return ductwork that feeds the gymnasium, the duct sock that is the supply is installed now, and so is the hard ducted return ductwork. That unit has been started up as well. Now working top down inside the town hall in terms of the final finishes for the project. We're really approaching this starting now at the 3rd floor of the town hall, working our way down and then through the community center to finish off finishes. So starting on the 3rd floor, all of the ceiling grid is done. Ceiling tile is installed. We have some of the flooring finishes down right now, like in the kitchen, we have VCT down. We have VCT covering all the storage rooms. We have the vinyl flooring that covers the lobby on the 3rd floor. Lights are working, device covers are on, data jacks have been terminated and labeled. At this point, we're just waiting for carpet, and we are coordinating the furniture move directly with the Board of Ed right now. Roller shades, window treatments, also installed along the 3rd floor and the 2nd floor. The 1st floor has been put on hold until we get just a little bit further along with final finishes, and we're almost there. Plumbing fixtures basically throughout the entire town hall, including the connector piece, the area between the town hall and the gym. The plumbing fixtures have been completed. Backbone cabling and grounding within the individual data rooms is also complete. And we've recently wrapped up porcelain tile that feeds the main stairwell off of the grand hall. All right, so work in progress. A lot of work in progress from all the bullets you can see. Door frames and doors along the community center, that's substantially complete. We have a couple doors left to do. Those doors actually showed up yesterday. So we plan to put those in this week. By the end of the week, we should be able to wrap up the perimeter of the community center. Final painting, we've done final painting on the 3rd floor. We've done most of the painting on the 2nd floor. I've noted substantially complete here. We have a couple hallways left to do in terms of final painting. And we're also doing final painting on the 1st floor as well. Carpet on the 2nd floor. We have carpet installed in some of the perimeter offices along the west side of the town hall. We will put in carpet in a couple weeks. We'll start back up on the 3rd floor. We're waiting for that material to show up. We're also swinging doors. We have all the wood doors installed on the 3rd floor, and we have most of the doors swung on the 2nd floor as well. The 1st floor door delivery showed up today. We'll drop down after 2nd floor is done to get on those. Porcelain tile. We also have porcelain tile within the lobby of the town hall on the 2nd floor. We're actually installing that now. You'll see that in one of the photos. The cab construction, that's a work in progress. Schindler is actively working on the cab. They're probably going to be working on that for the next few weeks. The ductwork in terms of the HVAC system and doing final terminations of HVAC on the 1st floor, we're substantially complete within the town hall. And we've got a lot of the above ceiling HVAC roughed in within the community center. Within the Grand Hall, there's a metal panel ceiling system, and we've started the installation of that. We have all the light fixtures energized within the Grand Hall. We have some of the metal panels installed. We're waiting for more metal panels to show up. We're probably a week away from seeing the rest of that material. That's a work in progress. Drywall and taping in the community center. We are essentially completed with drywall and taping in the Transition Academy and the daycare. We're on our second coat of taping within the administration area of Parks and Rec, and we're now making the corner. We have drywall pretty much all the way down, from the Parks and Rec kitchen all the way down to the multi-purpose rooms. And we're almost to the top of the ceiling with sheetrock and taping within the art room. They're going to be wrapping up sheetrock and taping this week to finish that off. Grid and millwork within the community center, that's also in progress. We have most of the cabinets installed within the Transition Academy, and we're making our way down along that west side of the community center. In terms of the overall mechanical equipment startup, all the equipment's been started up and tested and verified with the commissioning agent. We do have a couple of units left to start up within the community center. Until we get through more of the finishes, though, we're going to hold off from doing that. The sidewalk, the new sidewalk and concrete curbing along Mazzicoli Way, that is now done. And our site guys are now prepping for binder course for Mazzicoli Way.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Councilor Minor has a question.
Yes, Chris, go ahead. Is he muted?
He does it himself.
Okay.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. No, Frank can go ahead and continue. I just wanted to bring something up after we go through the COPs.
Okay.
Okay, Chris.
Okay, no problem. All right, so work that's on the horizon, again, looking ahead next week and in a few weeks beyond that. We've got toilet partitions showing up next week. We've coordinated with CNA. We're planning for them to be here on Tuesday after the holiday to start toilet partitions. And they'll be bringing toilet accessories. We'll start in the bathrooms on the 3rd floor and work our way down. The dry chem system for the vault, we're still tracking delivery of that. Unfortunately, that vendor shop is still closed due to COVID-19. We're keeping tabs on that. Again, not a lot of work. We do need to get some electrical done in the vault first before we can do the dry chem system anyway. That's in terms of the electrical work for the vault, that's also going to be starting up. That might be further down the list here. Vinyl plank flooring within the 2nd floor corridors. We're going to be starting that work tomorrow. Swinging doors, I mentioned. The 1st floor door showed up today. We're going to start on that very shortly. Community center flooring. Again, we're expecting carpet for the rest of the project by the week of June 1st. It's coming from Georgia. I expect it to be in transit for at least a couple days. So we plan to start carpeting basically the entire project, starting top down come the week of June 1st. Gym flooring. So we're meeting with Kenvo Flooring. They're the wood flooring subcontractor for the gym. We've got a walkthrough scheduled with them tomorrow, and we plan for them to start at some point next week, right after the holiday. And then really the rest of the general trade packages, little parts and pieces, we've been also tracking closely. We just had a delivery of all the whiteboards. We did place an order for picture rail. We did place an order for the FRP panels going in the Parks and Rec kitchen. We should be seeing those pretty soon. I mentioned the binder course along Mazzicoli Way. That looks like it's going to be lined up for Tuesday. They're doing the final prep now. We've laid process. We're doing a lot of compacting right now, getting ready. The temporary bituminous walkway along the west side of the building, we got to put that in place to be in conformance for TCO. So as we come around the building in terms of the site work, like I said, we're in Mazzicoli Way right now. We're going to finish the binder. From there, we're going to jump over to the north side of the building, which is closest to Cedar Street, do the final grading there, and then come around the corner along the west side and put in the temporary pavement there. Setting light poles along Mazzacoli, we obviously need to do that to be in TCO compliance. So we'll be on that in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Topsoil, looks like we're a couple weeks away from getting topsoil set. Plantings have been secured at the nursery. It's just a matter of scheduling him to stake everything out. Flagpoles, we still have flagpoles to do along the west entry. We're putting that on hold until we can get a little bit further along that west side and get some of these site activities completed. Any questions so far as it relates to the schedule?
Does anyone have any schedule questions?
Yeah, hey Frank, are you using town spec for the binder and the process and the finish course? Or do you even have it?
What are you looking for? What was your question?
Town spec for process, binder course, and finish course. I don't know if you even have it, but the town does have a spec for it.
It's Mr. Murther asking the question.
Yeah, we have a spec. We have approval on material.
Not an approval on a material. There's an actual spec on what the process should be, what binder should be, and the finish course. As far as material, each step.
Right. I mean, what would you like to know about the material itself? We have a 1.5 inch layer of binder and a 1.5 inch wearing surface with 6 inches of process.
Okay. Is that small process, large process, or both?
I'd have to go back to the detail and double check.
Okay.
You good, Eddie?
I'm good.
Okay, sir, thank you. All right, Frank.
You have Counselor Minor still.
Oh, Chris, go ahead, please.
No, I can still hang on. I didn't re-raise my hand. I'll wait until he goes through the
Oh,
CIP.
okay.
Oh, you're still up, Chris. I'll put you down for right now.
Oh, all right, thanks.
Okay.
You're the next batter up, even without a baseball season. Go ahead, Frank.
All right. So other critical items, again, getting back to the unfortunate situation of having to deal with COVID-19 on the project. As you guys know, we have proceeded with precautionary measures to deal with it, like having the temperature monitor here, doing the sanitizing agent that we're still doing twice a week. We would like to continue with that process, at least for the next few weeks, and then do another evaluation at that point in time to see if we continue. There is another COP that's been generated. It's not being presented this evening, but I just want to give you guys a heads up that that's coming, and that would be another CM contingency COP for that.
Okay, Frankie, continue, please.
Okay. Let's see, change orders. We'll get into the COPs now for review and approval, starting with.
Okay, I'd like to, if you would start with 181 and work your way down to 218, and we'll come back to 154 because there may be some extensive conversation on that.
Okay.
So we're going to start with 181. Go ahead.
Sure. So 181 has to do with adding power to the town council chambers within the floor. We need to add 3 recessed poke-through floor devices for power, and that totals $3,326.94. 198, I think we talked about this before. This is to get Sign Pro in the mix for the interior and exterior signage. Again, there's no increase to the GMP that's coming out of a CM contingency to bring them on board to do all of the signage for the project. COP 202, this is another old one to give back some of our own contingency. And so we finalized that to a formal COP 202 for $75,000. Again, that's a give back to fund the owner's contingency. 206 is to add call for aid stations by code. These are required in single bathrooms. So this is the cost to install 3 separate call for aid stations. I believe there's 1 on the second floor and 2 on the first floor. And that totals $3,673.89. 208 is to redo accent walls within the 3rd floor. That's to coincide with the updated finish plan for $684.58. COP 209, that's to add a push button operator, and that is for the community center. It's opening 1200B, which is an entrance between the daycare and the transition academy. That totals $1,575.74. COP 211, that's to add exterior light poles and light pole bases along Mazzicoli Way. Initially, the way the job was set up, the light poles were by the town, and now that has made its way into our scope of work. That's based on 4 locations for $32,888.37. 213 is to deal with data on the Board of Ed space to the open office areas. We basically added 6 data locations based on the new furniture configuration on the 3rd floor. And then we also had to pull data cable out and extend new data cable just based on the locations of furniture up there for $6,421.24. 214 is to deal with a field condition where we've got a piece of steel that would have remained exposed based on the ceiling layout. So this is to conceal that steel with drywall, building a soffit around it within the daycare for $455.78. COP 217 is to deal with control joints along the cast stone of the community center. We have a total of 4 locations within this change to add control joints. We have examined some cracks in the cast stone at these locations. We're spanning a large opening, and there should have been a control joint at these locations. This is to put them in at this point in time for $5,426.50. And then 218 has to do with the ceiling within the Grand Hall to install a continuous metal panel in lieu of the specifications, which talked about splice panels. There was a little bit of a discrepancy between the specifications and the drawings. We're chalking this up to a contingency item, so there's no increase to the GMP. When you total this, keeping in mind that this total includes COP 154, the COP 154 is coming out of CIP funds. It totals $175,090.18. When you back out COP 154, starting with COP 181 and working your way down through these, it actually nets a credit value that I mentioned earlier in the financial summary. It actually nets a credit of $20,546.96.
Okay, I see there are 2 participants raising their hands, James. We'll have Mr. Minor ask his question now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just real quick, Frank, if you could, just a clarification on the control joints on the stone, as well as the call for aid. Both of those were omissions or errors, for lack of a better term, or potentially one or the other?
Yeah, I would say one or the other, Chris. Certainly the call for aid is a code requirement that should have been part of the documents. And there should have been control joints to deal with these large spans at the cast stone, so.
Okay, and Mark, are we tracking these couple items on the list?
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you. And just to circle back real quick on the fiber optic, just as a clarification, and you can correct me on this if I'm wrong, this was an addition to and not part of the original scope and CDs that went out, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so this will be basically the first step coming out of the CIP account for townwide fiber optics, I believe, is where they're going to draw from. But just a clarification for the public that this is the first step of a separate project and is not part of this project as a whole.
Is that
That's
it,
all I
Chris?
got. That's
Okay,
it. Thank you, Joe.
I can't see who's up next, so.
Counselor Bedrejko was
Okay.
next.
Yeah,
Go
this is
ahead,
just,
Nancy.
can you just either refresh my memory or whatever on 202, crediting back or crediting unspent CM contingency back to the owner's contingency? Now, is that monies that had come out of our contingency and should not have? I mean, can you just explain what that is?
Yeah,
Right.
that's actually CM contingency that was held in our GMPs. And so that money comes out of CM contingency and is essentially transferred to the owner's contingency.
But why was it held in the first place? Is that normal?
Yes, part of the contract and the JMP is they have a percentage of what is considered CM contingency. And as we're going through the project and they release the CM contingency back to the project, and they see no need to hold that money anymore.
Okay, yeah, I thought that was done at the end. Okay, so it's periodic. Thank you.
It is periodic, yes.
At this point in time, because this question has also come up before, we're going to be holding the rest of that contingency, the rest of the CM contingency until we get to the end of the project, and then we'll do a reconciliation when we get to the end. I don't see another periodic evaluation of the contingency probably until right at the end when we're ready to do a final turnover.
Okay, thanks.
Just for your information, the entirety of the construction manager's contingency over time, if the project is going correctly, should flow back to the owner. And that's what he did with the 75,000 as risk is reduced. In other words, you get out of the ground, which is the highest risk, and get through other situations, then the contingency on average rolls back into the project as a benefit to the project. That's the whole structure of it. Doesn't always work that way depending on risk involved, but essentially that's what's happening. Okay, I can't see who's next, so who had their hand? Who is it, please?
Mr. Claffey.
Yes, Mr. Claffey.
Just a question to go to COP 209, Frank. Was that due to a change? Was the push button for the door supposed to be on a wall, or did they change the way the door was going to open? Where did that stem from? I know it's only 1,500, but just like the call to aids, these little things start to add up. So I'd like to know where that popped up from.
So the wiring is there for it, but we need a final device to terminate to. So there was nothing there for us to terminate to based on the details that we had.
Okay.
So we had to add this post essentially to complete the system.
Okay. So the design that you went off of, or the electrician or low voltage, was to pull it outside the building, not in behind a wall for a push button on the wall. That's
correct.
Okay. So Mark, are we following
Yes.
that? Thank you. I knew you'd say yes, but I just wanted Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Anthony. Does anyone else have a question at this point?
Well, Joe, I just wanted to point out that since we were talking about CM contingency earlier, that we've given back a total of 225,000 of CM contingency to fund the owner's contingency.
Well, that's working very well for us in terms of how that's supposed to come back into the project. So that's great. We appreciate that. Let's move back up to COP 154. And I received a late afternoon call from Mr. Barron, and he questioned our need to approve a COP over monies that we don't control, which is the CIP fund. So I guess the question would be, do we in fact have to approve COP? I know that we have to be aware of changes in the system and how they add back into the project, but I guess the abnormality with this particular procedure is whether our blessing is required on the COP for the loop, the three-phase loop. I mean, in either way, it'd be a credit to us because it's getting blown up by the CIP. But the question is, where are we on the alignment of Downs having to do what it has to do to show a debit and credit, to bring it down to that in terms of its project for the town versus the bookkeeping requirements or staying within the committee's authority on monies that it doesn't control. So I guess I would look for clarification because I had indicated to the committee that based on the conversation I had, we would not be voting on 154. It doesn't mean, you know, we can't vote on it, or maybe it does. I don't know. So I'd be looking for administration's clarification on that for the benefit of the committee.
Yeah, if I may, Jeff Barron, this is something that is actually part of, as Councilor Minor noted, part of the town-wide fiber optic network project. It overlaps with the town hall project. It was included as part of the town hall project so that we didn't have to cut up or dig up things that had recently been installed. So it made sense to include it as part of that project. But this change is not being paid for by funds that are controlled by the committee. And technically this work is actually outside the charge of this committee for the town hall project. It's related to the town hall, but it is not actually part of the town hall. Once this change order is approved, Downs will be notified in writing and a purchase order will be generated, but the purchase order will not be charging the town hall account or the owner's contingency.
Thank you, Jeff. Mr. Minor, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, just to clarify a little bit that might help is we had a similar situation early in the project that was, the solution was we paid the vendor directly because it was outside of the scope of the project. I don't know, Jeff, if this makes sense just for the paperwork standpoint to do it in a similar fashion, that we just pay the vendor directly for it. And I don't know what your feeling is on that, Frank, but it's basically the same situation as when we had the underground fuel storage tank that popped up. It was outside of scope.
Again, there's going to be a purchase order generated by the town. It's going to go to Downs for them to complete this work for the amount that it's determined to be at. And but that approval would not come from this committee. It would actually come from the person who controls the funds for that project.
Right, got it. Okay, thank you.
Frank, what would you do to adjust that in terms of construction accounting at this point?
Well, the cost of the work has to run through this contract. We're not entering into a separate agreement with anybody from the town, right? So this certainly has to go through the same process as any other change order that we've presented. You know, how the town determines, you know, how to pay for it, I guess, is really up to the town. Doesn't affect us at all. But it still has to run through the same contract that we have for the project.
And it does, yes.
Yeah, and so we would bill for it just like any other COP that we've billed for in the past.
I'm talking about, though, specifically of what the committee will be acting on in terms of these change orders. if we don't have control over the funds, and we don't, I'm not sure what value it brings to us voting on it.
If I might interject,
Yes, Mr. Minor.
Jeff, how did we handle the situation with the fuel tank? And that was dealt with outside of the scope of the contract for the same reason that we're dealing with this here. Do you remember first off, do you remember the circumstance I'm talking about?
Not specifically, but I know that there have been things, but again, this is going to be a separate purchase order. It's going to be part of the GMP total. It is part of the Downs contract that Downs has with the town, but it's not being funded out of the money that was borrowed through the referendum.
Okay, because as I remember it, and again, I could be wrong on what I'm saying here, but I remember them directly working outside of the scope of this contract to the vendor directly. Frank, do you remember what I'm talking about here? This was relatively early in the project.
Was it before we broke ground on the project? I'm not.
No, it was after we broke ground. It was a unknown condition that was not even associated with the building. It's the project itself. It was something that was broken out separately. I can't remember the specifics to it, but as I recall, it was the site contractor was basically aligned specifically for this work. I don't remember the specifics off the top of my head, but it was a similar situation. We were trying to keep it out of the GMP because it really wasn't part of it. It was clearly not part of it. And this being the same thing, this work is being done because it's going to interfere with being done at a later point, but it's not part of the project itself. It wasn't part of the original construction documents for this work. It's a outside of scope work.
Okay, here's what we're going to do, because I can't have the committee bogged down on accounting issues that it doesn't have a specific authority to get involved in. So we're going to pull this for tonight. You guys go back and figure it out, please. And then if we can do it by phone call, we'll do it by phone call. I'm sure the committee will be open to that, to see if you need any consensus from us on how it's going to operate. But we're not going to spend any more time on this because we're all busy with other things in our lives. And the two councils represented on the committee are busy with a lot of other things. So
I mean, Joe, we're busy actually doing this work now. So to say pull it, we're looking for some sort of acceptance that
we can accept the work's being done for the $195,637.14 in the form of a motion, and that the work is ongoing. But if I'm being given advice contrary to the way this is represented, I'm sure you can understand the committee's position. We're going to have to hold off on the adoption of the change order this evening at the very least, or we'll be talking about this all night. So we can recognize the 195 is going to be, part of the project in the sense that it's, it's being done by you under your contract, and give you recognition on that. The change order situation apparently needs some other discussion or actions by the town that are outside the venue of this committee. And I can't have the committee tied up for 45 minutes tonight, wondering how we're going to do this. So I'm recommending that we move on from this, and by say late tomorrow, we can have a resolution to it. I'll call the members and I'll get them on the phone, and you tell us what we need to do and what we should do. But we're not going to debate it for another 20 minutes. We're just not going to do that. So I'll entertain a motion to approve COPs 181 through 218. Do I have a motion for that?
I'll make a motion to that we accept it at Murtha.
And a second to that?
Second, Anthony Claffey.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Frank.
Okay.
Do we have a vote?
You got to vote.
I'm sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimously. Okay, Frank.
Okay, so to wrap up COPs, as far as Section B, orders of magnitude, pending revisions. COP 34, still on the list to deal with general trades. The potential savings is out there until we get through the general trade portions of work. Hopefully within the next 3 to 4 weeks, we'll have a better handle as more of the general trade packages are installed. COP 173 is dealing with the sleeves for the badminton courts. Again, we had planned on using some of the general trade savings to cover the cost of doing this work. Unfortunately, I'm still waiting for pricing from the vendor that would be providing these sleeves, and he's been pretty unresponsive. I'm trying to keep tabs on him to get a hold of him to get a price. 197 is another CM contingency item to add blocking at the community center to terminate the rubber roofing system at each canopy location. 198, signage from SignPro. That looks like a duplicate here. That can come off the list. That's up above. 199 has to do with terminating the ductwork inside the vault to add diffusers. There's 4 locations. It's a small amount of money to deal with that. That's a CM contingency item. 200 is another CM contingency to deal with venting at the underside of the canopies at the community center. 210, we have a design from Quisenberry to make provisions for flagpole lighting. We put a rough order of magnitude on that of $5,289. Switches for gym equipment. There's a small cost here to deal with larger switch covers because we did add a lot of wiring within the gym to deal with equipment. This is the larger switches to accommodate the wiring for $952. COP 215, that's getting interconnect wiring for the split system. That's the cooling system at each one of the data room locations. That's another CM contingency item, which is $0, 0 increase to the GMP. 216, extending power to open offices. So we dealt with the data for the open offices. This is to deal with the power, same type of situation, extending power to each one of the new furniture locations on the 3rd floor in the open area. 219 is ceiling revisions. We basically added drop ceilings in the little entries going into the council chambers. There's 3 main entries going into the council chambers off the grand hall. This is to change from a hard ceiling to a drop ceiling. Because they are small ceiling areas, we do need access above those ceilings to get to equipment. So it just makes sense to change them to a drop ceiling. We put a rough order of magnitude on that at $2,645. The multi-purpose ceiling revisions. This is to adjust the configuration of the ceilings in each one of the multi-purpose rooms. There's a total of 3 multi-purpose rooms within the community center. We've also added light fixtures. That's something that came from the design team. There's 6 light fixtures added as part of this change for $7,934. 221 is to deal with picture rail out of contingency. That was an unbought piece of scope. Same with FRP within the Parks and Rec kitchen, another CM contingency item. And then extending the COVID-19 precautionary measures I mentioned before, the last CM contingency here on the list, COP 223. When you combine all of those together, it nets a deduct of $2,348.50.
Are there any questions of Frank on 034, 02223?
Counselor Minor has a question.
Yes, Chris. Go ahead, Chris.
Let's try this again. COP 223. Frank, can you just break that off separately as a line item for possible reimbursement through FEMA? There's been some discussion as part of our COVID-19 response, that may be reimbursable to at least carry that line separately.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Frank.
Okay, there's some rejected COPs here at the end. All of this looks like old news for the most part. It's been brought up before in previous meetings, so I don't think there's any need to go over this list. I don't have anything new that's been added to this list. So we can move right over to the last section, the requisition component of the agenda, just to give everybody an update on that. The April 2020 rec, that's been processed. And based on that requisition through the end of April, as far as work in place is concerned, we put just over 19 million in place. That excludes the retainage. That leaves roughly 9 million left to complete, of work to complete, which does include the retainage. And we're currently holding just over 900,000 in retainage, total retainage on the contract.
I hope that answers your question, Barbara, if you're still on, because the cash flow was there to finish the project, including the takedown is included in that 9 million. So we have a contract tied up over $3 million to take the building down and do cleanup requirements. So hopefully that all comes in the way that we planned it. And we're pretty confident that it will. Right, Frank?
That's right.
Anything else, Frank, that you wanted to, do you have any?
Oh, it looks like there's a change order summary at the end that needs to be updated. We can come back to this at the next meeting. This just needs to be updated to reflect the correct amounts as far as approved additions and deletions.
Okay, and again, on 154, I'm happy to be available to go to any meeting tomorrow, and I'm sure the committee is willing to get on the phone to help you get this resolved. We want to get it resolved as well. We're open to any and all suggestions to get it resolved. So I'm sure we'll do that and move forward. Okay, that takes care of the project update. The next item, oh, Frank, I'm sorry. Did you have photos you wanted to show or no?
Yeah, I've got some pretty pictures.
Okay.
I'm not a professional photographer. I try.
Keep the day job.
Yeah. So the first photo, there's a shot of the town hall entry. This is on the east side, right closer to the library. So you can see the oh, going too fast. There we go. So you can see in front of the town hall. Again, keeping in mind that all these photos were taken on Friday of last week. So actually a lot has even happened just in a matter of a few days here. But you can see the sidewalk coming off the main entry. And then if you look above the roof, if you look at the roof line, just above the roof line, you can see, looks like a bunch of posts sticking up in the air. That's the support structure for the roof screen. I don't think I mentioned it before, but the roof screen vendor is going to be back on site after the holiday on Tuesday to start installing the panels that make up the roof screen. And that's about 12 feet in height overall, that roof screen on top of the town hall. Okay, next one. This is a shot looking down Mazzicoli Way towards Cedar Street. You can see the fence relocation that I mentioned earlier, moving it to the closer to the library. You can see one of the light pole bases that we've set already. And again, this was last week. So if you looked at it today, you'd see a lot of process down as we prepare for binder course next week. All right, that's a close-up of one of the entries along the town hall. We're building out the little vestibules. This is typical on both sides of the town hall. It gets this aluminum storefront entry system. We'll have a set of double doors on the front of this. And again, the guys are actually setting these openings now. They're doing that this week to get that buttoned up. There's another shot of the entry. Now this is on the west side. This is where the flagpoles are gonna go. It's hard to see it, but you can see some, what look like little posts sticking off the side of the building there to accept the flagpoles. And same entry set up there. Okay, so now we're inside on the top floor, Board of Ed space. This is looking at their, I believe it's like a copy work area. You can see we've got final paint on the walls. We've got permanent light fixtures in and energized. We've got all the ceiling tile in. We did go through here and we did perform a cleaning. So really all that's needed here is final flooring. There's another shot of the kitchen within the Board of Ed space. Again, pretty much done with the exception of appliances. Those are coming directly from the Board of Ed. Another shot of the open office area. Again, not a lot left to do here at this point. I mentioned swinging doors, which we pretty much wrapped up. And then if you can see the storefront entry system kind of off in the distance to the right. Beyond that is a lobby space, and we've put the final flooring within that lobby this week. Okay, now this is a photo of the second floor lobby area. This is the entry as you come off on the library side coming into Town Hall. This is the porcelain tile that greets you at that entry. And at this point, because this was taken on Friday, all of that tile is now laid and they're almost complete. It does kind of flare out after you get through this lobby to either side of the hallway. And that's just a typical shot of a water fountain station. We have 6 of these throughout with the same backsplash and dual water fountain setup with bottle filler station. That's just a typical setup that we have. There's your typical bathroom, vanity, sinks are in. You can't see it, but in the room, you also have plumbing fixtures that have been installed. Flooring is down, it's protected. And now it's just a matter of getting the toilet partitions in, which I mentioned would start next week, including the toilet accessories, which would be your grab bars and mirrors and things like that. Okay, so we're on the second floor. We're looking at the building department area. Again, you can see that we're essentially looking at a finished space. We've got final coat of paint on the walls. You can see the wood doors swung in the background. We have all the ceiling tile in, lights are working. Device covers are on. You really can't see that from this photo, but device covers are on. And it's just a matter of putting flooring down to finish this space off and some wall base. Okay, we're still on the second floor. We're in the hallway now. As you look towards the window, that's the building department space we were just looking at. There's the kitchenette for the building department. You can see that we've got some devices on the wall. Temperature control devices have been terminated and are working. And we've got all the hardware on the millwork. Plumbing fixtures are in. It's cleaned up pretty good. And just waiting on flooring. And that's a typical office on the second floor. You can see the carpet. Carpet is already down on the second floor. Final painted, tiles in. Roller shade is on. You really can't see it in this photo, but the shade is on, rolled up. And, you know, we're going to start reaching out to final cleaning vendors to look at the project and begin the final cleaning process next month. And this is still on the second floor. This is in the IT suite. Again, a lot of the ceiling tile is in at this point. This room might be done. You can see that we put VCT down, final coat of paint, wood door. There's some base, looks like some wall base left to do. There's not much left here in this area. And that is the staircase off of the grand hall. That's the porcelain tile stairwell. That's what we refer to as stairwell number 1. There's another stairwell number 2, that gets rubber finished flooring. And I tried to get a picture of the vault. There were no lights. This was my flash on my phone to show you the inside of the vault. Again, this was Friday last week. The painter's been in here, final painting the ceiling. It does get sealed concrete. And I mentioned electricians would be in here starting the electrical rough-in for that space. Okay, so now we're in the grand hall, sort of looking towards the bathrooms. The wall that's straight ahead of you will get a glass panel with the Town of Newington logo on it. You can see the porcelain tile wainscoting. That work is complete. And I mentioned that we do have the doors for the first floor, so we're going to start swinging those throughout the town hall very shortly. And still on the first floor, we've come off the grand hallway into the council chambers. So right now you see a lot of material in the background. We're sort of treating this as a lay down area for the elevator contractor. He's got a lot of parts and pieces laid out for the elevator cab construction. But essentially you can see a finished space here, sheetrock, painting. A lot of the ceiling tile is done. I think some of this is probably padded out, all the ceiling tiles in rather, for the council chambers. Okay, this is just a shot looking down the hallway for the NCTV suite. There's several rooms here for NCTV. Off this hallway, TV production, engineering, things of that nature for NCTV. That's a typical shower setup. There's 2 shower setups, one in each gang bathroom that's off the gymnasium. Now we're looking at the Transition Academy. You can see below the windows that we have the base cabinets installed. And I think at this point, the grid is pretty much wrapped up and they're starting to put in ceiling tile in this space. And that's just a hallway shot of the community center. This is along the west side of the community center. And now we're still in the community center in the other corridor going around the corner. We're now on the south side. So the rooms off to the right include the Parks and Rec kitchen. And then beyond that is the multi-purpose rooms. And beyond that, at the end of this hallway is the art room. And now we're standing inside the gymnasium. I mentioned the ductwork is complete, the supply and return. And I believe the painter has been back in there to do the final touch-ups. You can see the accent band paint in dark blue around the gym. And I mentioned wood flooring would start up next week. That's all I have for photos.
Okay, thank you, Frank. We'll now go to a presentation on landscaping and planting layout for the new facility. Chris?
Hey, Joe, can you hear me?
Are you there, Chris?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Which one do you want to start with, Chris?
Let's go with the, I think there is a landscape plan that's not colored in.
Okay, give me a second. So that'll be the planting plan?
Yes.
Okay.
The public's edification is a presentation by Quisenberry Arcari, the architectural firm on the job. And they're going to go through the presentation on landscaping and plant layout.
There you are. Is that showing up now?
I'm not
No.
seeing it on mine.
No.
Oh, there we are.
There you go. Thank you, James.
You're welcome.
Okay, what you're looking at right now is the contract planting plan for the overall site that includes the parking lot, the building proper for the new town hall, and the library portion of the job that was previously done. So you're seeing the overall campus here on this plan. And then if you kind of zoom in on the text at the bottom, there is some plant schedule information there. You can see it tells you what type of plants there are. And it all has a key tag to it. So if you're looking at the left side of your schedule, the key tag is 2 letters typically, and it is identifying each of the plants that are on site. So when you take a look at this plan, you can kind of identify which plant is which plant on the plan. So this is the plan that Downs is following currently. There have been no real changes to this based on anything to do with the property line or the gym bump out. So the original contract plan is still in place for the site plantings. So if you go to the next plan, this kind of is a little closer look at just the building itself, showing the surroundings of the building as to what plants are which. Again, there's a plant schedule on your left. There's no tags on this plan, just to keep it a little cleaner and give you more of a defined view of kind of the count of plants and where they are. So you can kind of reference this sheet and the previous sheet if you want a little more information on exactly which plant is there. Generally, you see the larger circles are going to be your trees, which you'll see in the following slides. We'll show you some of the trees options that are in various places on site. Smaller purple items indicated are flowering trees, and you'll see what trees are the flowering trees in the images on the next few slides as well. And then as you kind of get a little closer to the building, we have smaller shrubs and flowering plants there that are lower, and those as well will be on the next slides for you. So that's the general overall view of the plantings. You've all seen somewhat of a presentation similar to this early on, so this shouldn't be new information, just a little cleaner hopefully, and shows you what we have on site. The next 3 pages, if you go to the next page, will give you the actual image of what each individual plant type is, and then their corresponding key tags. So if you go back through the first plan, you'll see that 2-letter tag pointing to each individual plant and a count of those plants, so you can identify as to what plant is where, to get a more defined view of what these plants will look like once they're established. So we started out with the trees and then went to kind of larger plantings and then down to the smaller flower plants that on the second and third page of these planting images. So that's a general overview of the planting plan. Like I said, no changes overall really to the plan since its inception at the beginning. We're just showing a little more defined plan of what's going in there for your information.
Are there any questions of Chris? Chris, Joe Harpy, in terms of the what we're looking at right now, when the landscape architect came in many months ago with Mr. Arcari, I thought there was some design, and perhaps when we did the revised property line, there isn't any room now with retaining wall, etc. Was there or was there not some public area, gathering area designed in front of the new town hall as you look at it from the library across, looking west? On the
There
library.
was at some point a plaza area at the south end of the building, kind of like an amphitheater layout. And I think with the revision of the property line, that portion had gone away based on value engineering and the property line layout. Is that what you're referring to? Where it was right
Yes.
south of those 3 meeting rooms?
Yes. Okay. And this design that we're looking at, does that account for the settled width of Mazzicoli Way?
Currently, if you look at your screen there, there's 2 trees on the left side of Mazzicoli Way there. Those trees are technically in the right of way, I believe, for Mazzicoli. But I don't think they will be impacted if there is desire to widen that roadway and open up Mazzicoli. As you remember, the sidewalk runs down along that side as well. So if you go to the colored plan, it shows the sidewalk that got added as part of the 824. So you'll see that sidewalk. Those trees may have been shifted on this plan a little bit to the west to get it off of the sidewalk, but the intent would be that sidewalk remains as part of the Mazzicoli Way right away if that ever does open. So those trees should be able to remain in place.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the committee?
Joe, if I could real quick.
Yes, Mr. Minor.
Chris, on the final, that south end gathering area that was originally scoped with a retaining wall and a little more of a patio area per se, that is all now sloped and going to be grass all the way down to the sidewalk right on the exterior of the building, correct?
Correct. Yeah, you
So
see,
yeah, it still has the ability.
out there.
Yeah, it still has the ability for still to have seating on the lawn area for a presentation on the concrete sidewalk if that was desired, correct?
Yeah, and what you're not seeing on this too, Chris, is it's kind of like a bowl shape there because you're going from the higher elevation, kind of continuing around and stepping down to the lower elevation of the lower level of the town hall. So there is kind of a bowl kind of shape there in the grading. So it would help. I don't know how steep it will be at the final grading, but it will make a little lawn area that's slopeful towards the concrete patio.
All right. And I'm just curious to what the committee would think of or what Don might think. The plantings that are in the middle of that lawn area, if you were to do, seating on that embankment or on that slope, does it make sense just to omit the ones that are kind of out in the middle of that sloped area right there? Yes. Does that make sense or no?
Chris, do you have comment on that?
Are you talking to me, Chris? Or
Yeah, he's asking you.
okay.
I don't have a there to get in there, but those little bushes, I guess.
Yeah, I think if that is the intent to have seating there to do outdoor presentations, possibly relocate those or remove them from the scope. I think we should probably also look at what exactly those other plants are kind of along the patio and make sure they're lower, smaller plants so we can keep them in there if they won't interfere with the possibility of presentations and events at that location. So I'll look further into that.
All right, because the other plantings south of that little grouping or slope area where you may be able to sit or whatever, they seem to be encroaching on the sidewalk issue, I guess. Is that the proposed extension of the existing sidewalk?
Right. Yeah, I'll take a look at what exact plants are in there and what their heights are, and if they're higher and looking like they might interfere, I think we should look at again relocating or removing them from the scope.
Are there any questions Chris,
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Patat has a question.
yes. Please go.
Joe Paul Boutot from IT. I had a question on whether or not QA&M or the landscape architect has taken a look at the fiber optic pathway that we have along the north corridor coming down along in between Mazzacoli and then crossing that green area that we have there going across towards Garfield. So there's going to be some work done along that. And I wanted to see if anyone has actually overlaid the fiber optic conduit pathways to see what type of impact these trees may have on their root systems and compromising the fiber optic conduits in the future.
Paul, I don't think anybody had taken a look at that, but put it on our radar to take a look at that.
So we just had a breach over on the Senior Disabled Center across the street. We actually have a tree that compromised one of our conduits that we had in the ground. So looking at where a lot of those trees are located right now, especially on the north end of the property and then the south end of the property, you're definitely going to have 4-inch conduit pathways that'll be breached at some point with the root systems.
Okay. We'll take a look at it, Paul.
You have anything else, Paul, or?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Joe, this is Frank at Downs.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I just want to clarify something that Chris pointed out on this plan that we're all looking at right now. The sidewalk along the east side of the building at the gymnasium bump out.
Yeah,
So currently, we don't have any plans to do a sidewalk there. I know Chris is showing a sidewalk. At one point, we had presented a proposal to add that sidewalk, but it was not approved. So there's currently no
there
provisions
isn't.
in our contract to address that sidewalk.
That's true. And that's an issue I think the town is going to look on post-construction.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, Joe, Chris Minor, is that was some consideration to when the Garfield project was done for pedestrian and cycle accessibility, that was something that may potentially be incorporated into it. I believe that was the intent.
Okay. All right, Chris, so you've had several good questions posed to you that you've answered, and if you can recalculate some of the locations of those plantings and give us some look at that again.
Okay.
Before July, so we can just see where we're going. It's a tight campus, no doubt about it. So I guess smaller to grow in the future is better than bigger, but no, they have to be replaced or eliminated and throw the aesthetic view of the thing off. But we appreciate the update. It's important to us. Okay, we've already taken care of Roman numeral 7, the change orders, and we would now go to consider and take action on fund transfers, if any. Mr. Barron.
Yeah, because this was a credit, there is no fund transfers that's required.
Thank you. Any other business pertinent to the committee?
Not unless you wish to pick your next meeting date. Your regular meeting date is scheduled for next week, May 27th. And your next regular meeting dates after that are June 10th and June 24th. Do you wish to meet on May 27th?
Let's say the committee, do you prefer to wait to June 10th when we have more information? On
June 10th.
The building?
Yeah, I think June 10th, Chief.
Yeah, Downs would prefer that as well.
Okay, we'll go for June 10th, Mr. Barron.
Very good. Thank you.
Public
No other
participation.
business.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I have no other business.
Okay. Public participation. Any member of the public wishing to speak, please state your name and address. Do we have anybody in the queue, James?
We still have our 2 attendees. Nobody's raised their hand as of yet.
Okay. All right, moving to comments by committee members. Any member of the committee wishing to make a comment on any of the proceedings or actions this evening? I just
June 10th, same format as tonight?
I'm sorry?
June 10th, same format as tonight?
Yes,
Hopefully
for
not.
the, without the presentation from the architect on landscaping.
Okay.
And without the, well, we'll leave it at that. Okay. Comments by committee members. I would just like to say that, again, I appreciate the efforts made by staff, Downs and our Kerry to keep this project moving ahead, given all the challenges. Not only challenges that originated with the site and things that the committee had to overcome, not only the issues that we went through both on the town side and the committee side to get where we are. Everyone has kept the goal in mind to complete this building. And I really am impressed by the way we've been able to function, where everybody has their own little function in terms of how to get this thing done. And a group of many players, the committee, the town, the two professional firms. And it's not always easy to accomplish that with all the eyewash that was going on previous to this new administration. So again, I personally want to extend my thank you to each committee member and administration. You've done a remarkable job given what's going on and what could have befallen this whole thing from internal wounds that we wouldn't allow to happen. We kept moving forward. And in terms of this virus, God willing, will be put to sleep soon, how that could have impacted the whole project. So thank you again. And I say, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Joe, excuse me, it's Rod Mortensen.
Yes, Rod, you go ahead.
You can hear me now?
I can hear you, sir.
Hallelujah. Better late than never. I just had, I hate to go back, but I just had one question on the landscape. Now
Yeah,
that
you go
I
ahead.
connect to you on the landscape plan.
Yep.
And I would defer to Don Woods, who obviously is the expert. But just looking at what some of these trees are, just one question. And I think there's about 9 pin oaks put in the project. And at least the pin oaks that I've dealt with are probably one of the messiest, dirtiest, and after a few years when they stop dropping acorns, et cetera, over there. And maybe there's a different species of pin oaks that doesn't do that. That's one thing I think they should look at. And again, I defer to Don Woods. And the other thing was mentioned a little bit, I think by Chris Minor. If you're looking at the south side of the project from the right on the Garfield line, I think what has to be kept in mind is that if there is any kind of patio or even hillside seating area, about 5 or 6 of those trees along the edge would impair, I would believe, viewing of, our biggest event in the town is the Life Be In It, just across the street. And I'm not sure how, without actually standing on the site looking at it, I think that needs to be taken into account, whatever ends up being plantings in that area. And I'm assuming the third part of that is that looking at heat gains on the building from the south side and the west side, that wherever possible, without overtaking the building area, that plantings that would, excuse me, help provide some kind of shade there to prevent heat gain, which is huge. If you go by the town hall now, if you've ever gone by on a later day, and you can feel the heat emanating off of the brick later in the day, that it retains so much heat there. So just some quick comments. I don't want to get into it, but I'll stop and talk to Don afterwards. Like I said, he's the expert, not me, but I just wanted to bring that up.
All right, thank you, Rod.
Okay.
Okay, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second, Anthony Claffey.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
We stand adjourned. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, Mayor.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Mayor.
Hey, Beth.